Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are looking at the changes to talent trees and how we, as mere mortal players, can understand what we're looking at for a start, and more importantly, how we can get it to work for us. So let's get into this. The new talent trees give us a chance to learn, to really deep dive into our class. We haven't had a change like this since Cataclysm, when we moved from the classic talent tree system into the more modern rows that we're used to now. This is a great opportunity to get to grips with our class and to understand what makes it tick under the hood, and how we can get the most out of it for us. Not just by parroting Wowhead or Icy Veins articles or repeating to friends exactly what your favourite pro player said. With this level of understanding that hopefully we'll gain from this, it gives us freedom to say, okay, I understand now why this Wowhead build is the way it is, but does it work for me? Does it work for my level of talent, my level of ability as a player? And if not, how can I adapt it so that it does? Maybe I can go more offensive. Maybe I prefer to go more defensive. The long and short of it is, understanding why talents work and what they do gives you the ability to learn from the best, but also to adapt rather than just blindly follow. It's how we as players can get better. It's the first step to mastering our class. Now, speaking of first steps, should we get started? Rather than jump straight into the new talents, which at first glance may seem a little bit daunting, we want to look at what we've had during Shadowlands. We can then use this as a guide of sorts, a template to work from. You may be asking, why do this if the idea is to think for ourselves? Because, hey, Grim, my Shadowlands build, I copied that from Icy Veins or Wowhead. Well, the reason being is we need a safety blanket. We need something to fall back on. We've all been there. When you try something new and it doesn't quite work out, you immediately want to go back to your old ways of doing things. Also, by deconstructing our current build and seeing how it fits together, that means going forward in Dragonflight, we will see opportunities for better, more interesting talents, for changes in the playstyle that may work better for us. Even if the new talent system looks overwhelming, don't forget, what we have now is realistically just as crazy. We've got, our selection of talents. Fine, that looks really simple. Then we've got soulbinds. Then we've got conduits. And now, of course, on top of that, we've got legendaries. We've got tier sets. You can start to see that it isn't as simple as it first appears, even what we've had throughout Shadowlands. So we start by identifying what makes this spec, this class, whatever it may be, fun for us as a player. What are the things in the toolkit that we just cannot live without? A personal one on my Warlock would be Implosion. I love having a million little guys following me around and then, boom, throwing them into a big pack of mobs and watching them explode. It reminds me of Corpse Explosion, funny enough, in Diablo, and I love that ability. I played a build the other day on the beta where I'd removed Implosion, and it sucked. I just hated it. DPS was fine, but it just didn't feel like the class I love. Also, I love having shards upon summoning my Tyrant. I like Mortal Call. The list goes on and on and on. But the major thing here, the most important thing, is while you're doing this, be honest to yourself. It's not just about things that we enjoy about the class, about the spec, that we can't live without. These new talent trees also give us the opportunity to make the most of our strengths as a player, and to cut out, or at least try to limit, our weaknesses. A good example for me on the lock is, hands up, I'm rubbish at curses. I don't put them on, and I know how powerful they can be. So that may be something I should skip. Instead, get something else that could help my team out that I'm actually going to use. I can have all the best group utility in the world. Doesn't mean anything if I don't use them. Better to have one utility that I'm going to use constantly to help the team out. And with these points in mind, I've created my list of talents, abilities, etc. that I would like to try and get. Now, to Dragonflight, pre-patch, and the new talent system. Now don't worry, you don't have access to the beta, all the talent trees are on PTR, and of course, by the time this video actually goes live, they should be available on retail. There is also, Wowhead has a fantastic calculator if you want to jump in there and try that out instead. Now, this, as I said before, can look overwhelming to start with. It's a lot. And the urge could be to immediately run, find a guide that makes life simple. Just tell me what to do, damn it, Wowhead. And that's why we took the time to make a little list of things we want from current or previous Shadowlands WoW. It can be, that list, by the way, can be as detailed or as threadbare as you want. But the idea is we're going to use this as a map, as a guide as we go through the talent trees. So let's start at the top, because there's really nowhere else you can start. This gives us one of our core abilities to the class, ticking one off the list straight away. Then we have another one below it, tick. The first tier is like this for all classes, giving you the core abilities that define your spec. Now you can see here, we have Implosion. I want that. So we're going to have to go and bridge the gap, grab this passive node. Boom, that's another one off my list. So that's 4 points spent. We have 3 of our desired abilities, but to move on, we need to spend another 4 points. Tier 2 requires a total of 8 points to have been spent on the previous tier before it's unlocked. So there we go, we've completed tier 1. We move on to the second tier. Because we have this rough roadmap of abilities and features, it leads us around the spiderweb of talents. So it doesn't feel overwhelming. And again, just like unlocking tier 2, tier 3 has a point requirement. To unlock that, we need to have spent 20 points in the previous 2 tiers. Now really nothing changes from tier to tier. We have our desired goals, and we are trying to target them as best we can, filling in the gaps as we go. Tier 3 is where the tough choices start to kick in. We can get a lot less of those sweet, sweet powers, as our points now are starting to run out. But we still continue to pick options that reflect our Shadowlands build. This is a rotation. This is a build that we have been used to. It's a safe place for us to start when we're about to head into unknown dungeons and unknown content. Keep in mind, if you are using something like Wowhead's calculator, it allows you to put in the maximum amount of points. This is only possible once you have hit level 70. So you've built your spec tree. Now it's time to do this all over again. But exactly the same mindset. We need to go over to our class tree. The class tree focuses more on what are the core abilities that are shared across all of your specs. Here is where you can decide on what to pick to best sort of help your own survivability, to help the team. It's all of your utility, defensives, things like that. Now helping your team out may cover a myriad of different options. You may just want to take all the defensive options you can, so simply you don't die while you're learning. There may be times that, yeah, we all just stand in fire once too often. Or maybe you are simply the most amazing player on Earth. You care nothing for defensives, instead taking all of the stuns, interrupts, every single bit of utility just to help the team. But the key here is to be honest with yourself. Don't think you're better than you are, worse than you are, or anything. Just be honest with yourself. If you're lazy and never interrupt, by the way, you should really interrupt, especially M+, please interrupt. But if you're really not going to do it, if you're too scared, you're too nervous, you just do not want to press that interrupt button, then don't take it. But instead, take other utility that you will use that will help the team. My only other note here is there are some sneaky DPS options located in these class talents. For instance, the Covenant abilities that are carried over, that are used between all of your specs, will sometimes be in this section. I remember chatting to a mate of mine about the Demon Hunter talent options, and we were trying to find Haunt. Lo and behold, it was over in the class tree, so just keep that in mind while picking your options here. As I said before, our mindset is the same. We focus on what we've had throughout Shadowlands, we highlight our desired talents, and then we start to connect the dots. And there we have it. We have completed our Warlock tree. It's picked based on what's worked for me throughout Shadowlands. It's what my muscle memory is used to on live. I know with this build, it's going to work for me going into pre-patch and going into Dragonflight. Is it optimal? Maybe not. So let's talk about that. With this build done, with this completed, we get to enjoy one of the best new things regarding these talent trees in Dragonflight. We can save our builds. So here we go. We're going to save it. So I don't know, Shadowlands build. Well, with our Shadowlands build saved, we can go crazy, try whatever the hell we want. Maybe our new selection will create a whole new playstyle for us to test and enjoy. And that's fine. We can do this as many times as we want. We have options and options and more options, because every build we come up with, we can simply save it. Want a solo build? Done. Want an AoE build? Done. Want a single target raid build? Done. Want to tailor your tank or your healer to different affix combos? Done. You want to tailor it to the individual dungeons? You can do that. And you can swap it when you want. But taking time to create our Shadowlands build gives us the foundation, gives us the freedom, and hopefully while we're doing it we gain a little bit of knowledge to notice the possibilities in this new talent tree. To see things we're going to want to try, that we want to experiment with. While others are bound to what the pros say, to what Wowhead, Icy Veins say, that must be followed religiously, or they simply pick the current flavour of the month without understanding it, we can slowly take what the pros say, understand it, understand why they're saying that, and adapt it to suit us and the situations we find ourselves in. We become those players that, rather than go, oh, Wowhead says I must have haste mastery, no, instead I'm going to go to Raidbot and I'm going to find out what sim's better for my character. I'm going to take responsibility for that. The world of pro players is very different from most of us. Their builds are designed around pushing 30, 35 plus keys, designed for doing mythic content at the very cutting edge. Do we really think that that applies 100% of the time for us in our plus 15? And that's the important thing, it relies on us getting the most out of that build to be able to play as well as the pros. I'm damn sure I can't. I'm going to guess that I stand in fire, that I get interrupted by quaking a lot more than the very top guys and girls. Something I always like to remember, and I even did a tweet about this years ago, the biggest performance boost to any class is the player. The reason the very top players care about min-maxing or meta so much is they have reached the top level of performance. They need those extra advantages. Skill is maxed. Gear is mythic. That only leaves the class itself. That's not the case for 99% of players who seek an advantage to make up for the lack of skill. Don't be afraid of these new talent trees. Embrace them. Play with them. See what works for you. Yes, there will always be meta classes, but players that choose those classes without learning, without trying to understand what's going on under the hood, players that simply look at a DPS ranking or a tier list and go, oh, that one, will always be worse than players that embrace their class, understand why it functions the way it does, learn from the best players without being bound to what they say. The playing field has been blasted wide open with these new talent trees. As I mentioned earlier in the video, we haven't had a change like this since Kata. There has never been a better opportunity to really dive into your favourite class and get the most out of it. And I'm not just saying that because we're all going to start pushing plus 30s and we're all going to become amazing. But at its basic level, understanding your class brings a whole new level of enjoyment and fun and depth to the game. Now, on a side note here, I'm going to be trying some crazy builds out going into Dragonflight for different classes. We're just going to spin that wheel, try a crazy build, and we're going to go and try it out in dungeons. I want people to see me messing about these talent trees, and maybe me making an idiot myself will mean that people don't have fear of the talents, and instead we'll see that there are no really wrong answers when you're playing at our level. Just opportunities to learn and get better. But that's enough from me. If you've stuck with me this long, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe. I will catch you all in the next video. Ladies, everyone.